All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Matthew Schutte, and I'm here with Arthur Brock and Eric Harris-Braun for the first quarter of 2026 delivery brief. Thanks for joining us. The second half of 2025 was a period of transformation for the Holochain ecosystem, where we pulled together for closer coordination between Holo, Holochain, and Unyt to ship software faster. The key thing we recognized at the close of the year was that Unyt, in building out the technical underpinnings of HoloFuel, has delivered something even broader than initially targeted: peer-to-peer payment rails capable of multi-currency accounting, blockchain bridging, and community configurable economics. Unyt started shipping new features and product variants every 2 weeks, starting in September, and then when Art shared Unit's roadmap for Q1 2026 in late December, the message was clear: delivery will keep going strong. So let's review what each organization shipped in the first quarter of 2026. Zippy, I'll let you kick us off with a little bit of telling us what happened with Holo.
Ah, so Holo Q1, there's a bunch of things that were on our roadmap. We shipped them all. We continued work on edge nodes. And I think one of the most exciting pieces of all of it is the running of the technical capability to do the swap from hot to HoloFuel, and all the people who we've signed up to be part of that work. And I think Arton, you want to tell us a little bit about how that's happened as part of what we've done and brought together.
Yeah, I mean it's a big deal. We are running the tools that would power the hot to HoloFuel swap. We had over 350 people sign up to test, and we've invited them all to test. We invited them a little in some separate groups because we're doing a little bit of A/B testing in some stuff. So everybody didn't get the email all at once, but people have been jumping in and actively testing. We've got a Telegram channel going where people are posting questions. We've got a very thoroughly documented process. Matthew has put in a lot of work into that and even a video walkthrough of that process. Do you want to say anything else about it, Matt?
No, just that we've had, well, I'll say that the Unit team has been shipping release after release after release to improve that hot to holo fuel swap functionality or technical migration functionality. But also, we've had this really great group of testers. We've had a small group of community testers that's been helping over about a month now, maybe more than a month, month and a half, just providing feedback on user interface, things seem slow here, et cetera, et cetera. And then just over the last week or so, week and a half, we've had a much larger group actually jump in and do the same. And they've surfaced um, UI things that we hadn't noticed or figured out. They've made a bunch of feedback or suggestions on things that they think could be even more intuitive. And they found a couple of bugs. And so it's been really great. It's right at the time of this recording, we're still testing, but the test is going strong so far.
Yeah, let me just say one more piece about that because you in your intro talked about how we'd set up a pattern of releasing every 2 weeks. And if you look at our blog now for the last almost month, you're not going to see a bunch of unit releases. So it looks like that we're blogging about, that we're announcing as new features. Meanwhile, we've made like 25 releases in the last month. If you go to the Git repo, you can see that. You can see the massive explosion of releases because we've been iterating really fast on getting this nailed down and fixing bugs and that kind of thing so that it is solid for being able to handle people's financial data.
Thanks, Art.
Yeah.
Zippy, I'll pass it back to you for more on
Yeah.
Holo.
So in Holo, Edge Node has been moving along steadily, maturing. I think one of the things that we are is very grateful to the Edge Node community who's been testing things, trying things out, actually playing with things. We've had an Edge Node community member figure out how to run it on Android, which is fun and exciting. And that's that part of the whole purpose of it is having it be really easy and available for, well, I shouldn't really say easy, available and possible for technically minded folks to be able to run these nodes. So that's been going on as one of the big pieces of Q1.
Zippy, can you just, for folks who aren't super familiar, what is Edge Node?
So edge node is the ability to run a holochain conductor on a container that is a virtual machine that runs on Docker, and we have a version of it that you can install on your Holoport. We have versions of it that you can install on any other hardware that you want. It's just a containerized version of an operating system to run Holo.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Art.
I just want to take another cut at it.
yeah.
So what we had shipped before in Holo was a Nix-based operating system on the Holo ports and all of that. What we've done is just make something much leaner, smaller. It's a Docker container. It can run along with other things on computers. So you can run a Holo hosting node that doesn't have to be dedicated to only being a Holo hosting node. You can put other things in Docker containers on there. Basically, any kind of place where you can deploy Docker containers, you could deploy edge node functionality. And so it's just created more flexibility and power for people who want to do hosting to mix it with other things and other types of hosting they might do on the device.
And
Yeah, and I think the intent comes out of the idea of putting the intelligence to the edges and letting people try different things that they want to have run. And so you can run your always on nodes for a MOS instance. You can run a bunch of other things. And this is what I'm going to talk about next. The next thing that we developed and has come out in early alpha. This is pretty exciting. What it is Holochain running in a web browser, which is always something that we wanted to be able to do. Now, the way we did this is, and what we're calling it is the Holo Web Conductor. What we've done is we've split the Holochain conductor into two parts. The part that actually runs the cryptographic writing of your source chain, the place where you need to have your data being held locally, that runs inside the web browser. And what it does is it connects to what we're calling a linker, which basically is the interface between the web page that's connected to the linker that then is connected to the Holochain network that would be running the same app, but on Holochain nodes instead of on web browsers. And so that is out. It works. We've tested it with Musefeed. There's a little bit of work that you need to do to Holo Web Conductor enable your app, but we've been testing that out with Musefeed. All of this has been internal testing. That's a thing that we hope to get out as external testing with other people in the upcoming weeks. And then there's been one other piece that was needed technically for that is the thing that's been in the works for a long time. We've wanted to have it, but we just never built it. But we absolutely needed to have it for making the Holo Web Conductor work, and that is a joining service. And this is a service that can be used for doing KYC, for creating membraned network spaces for Holochain. So in the case of the Holo Web Conductor, what you need to be able to do is tell the web browser where can it go to find linkers to connect into the actual Holochain network of that particular app that's running. But it also includes the capability of saying you only get to do this if you've confirmed your email address, so we know who you are as joining part of that network. And that is also up and is running in alpha on the on Holo's GitHub.
And Art, can you comment a little bit on that too? Because I know we got to
Yeah,
be able to look.
I want to say, Holo's promise regarding hosting was basically to be able to serve Holochain apps to web users. And this is doing that. This is running a part of Holochain, just your local actions. It's not running the whole network aspect of Holochain in the browser. So when Eric says you have Holochain running in the browser, you only have a part of Holochain. We kind of split it in half. And the linker is what's connecting you to the network part of Holochain. So what's linking you to the network part of Holochain, right? And that's not in the browser. That's actually a part of what can be hosted. It could be hosted on an edge node. It could be hosted but this is part of the hosting infrastructure side. And so it's a big deal because, again, the goal of having Holochain apps be able to just have somebody navigate to an address and be able to run it in their browser, this is what accomplishes that. Now, the browser side, the Holo Web Conductor, that's an extension you have to install. And in part, it's also because we need a safe place for your keys. And if we don't install an extension, we can't actually have safe storage for the keys. So the extension runs the layer key store, which is another part of Holochain, but it's important, in Web3 world that you control your own keys, and this is basically how you go about doing that. And so it's a big deal that this is built and shipped. Well, shipped. It's in testing. It isn't totally solidified yet. There's more testing for this to do, but it's pretty cool.
Art, can you also just comment on the joining service side? Because I know we were really excited about that at Unit. Um,
Yeah, so that's one of the things down in the unit section we were going to get to later, but it helps us do different types of sort of KYC or challenges in joining a network, which
KYC?
is know your customer. So Unit is a unit accounting software. It does financial things. Very frequently, financial regulators require people in order to participate to go through an identity verification process, which is the know your customer stuff. So we, in coordination on this joining service work that was being built for Holo, we've also integrated that into Unit in the places that you would put in different types of KYC requirements, like what levels of verification are required. With the most basic level being an email address, which is almost nothing, all the way to your passport or state ID, type of thing being able to be verified. And
Yeah, and the joining service is a general purpose tool for doing that. So you can even do simple things like here's an invitation code, and you can only join this particular network if there's an invitation code. So it's set up to be used by different app providers that have different requirements for the membrane for crossing in to become a member of that particular Holochain application. So it's nice that it has that kind of variability for different use cases.
Awesome. Zippy, do you want to take us into Holochain?
Sure. The Holochain team has been doing the main bit of work that the Holochain team has been doing over Q1 is what I would call the deep work of maturity, of really being able to get something into a place that it works in production and is completely solid. And one of the places that we really crossed, I think, a big barrier is switching to using IRO as our networking backend. Before we had rolled our own WebRTC tooling for being able to do the backend connection, the backend transport, and that worked. It had some stability problems, and we figured that if we could find somebody who really had been building something better, we could use it. And I met the folks at IRO at a conference. They're a new upcoming group that really their mission in life is P2P super stable. They want to get it in and stabilized as IETF level protocols for the internet. And so I found that they were fantastic. We did some research into it. We gave it a try. We added a IRO backend onto Kitsune, which is our like mid-stack layer of our networking protocol. And it just right off the bat, it was working better and more quickly. And so that I think is the big delivery. Super happy with how that's working for Q1. And then the rest of it is, I mean, I can't even describe all the little bits and pieces of it, all the bugs, all the stabilization, the stuff that makes memory be used carefully, the changing in the way databases are handled. Just there's so much that it takes to take networking software as complicated as ours from it works and sometimes it doesn't too. It just works all the time. And that's been what Holochain team has been developing and bringing out over this time period. And also, in service of that, a big chunk of the work has been working on Wind Tunnel. Wind Tunnel is our testing environment. We're now running routinely on 250 nodes, different scenarios that do things like how long does it take for data to synchronize on the DHT? How quickly does Holochain spin up? There's a bunch of different metrics. We're increasing the ease of use of looking at that data and being able to see it. And so that's been the other piece that we've delivered on, I think, quite to our satisfaction in Q1. And on top of all of that, the team has spent a lot of time in the iteration loop with Unyt to do this testing that we've been talking about. So when things go wrong, whose fault is it? Is it your fault? Is it our fault? And going back and forth and figuring that out, looking at logs, being in meetings and It's a ton of work to do that, and that's a big piece. And I think that is our handover for going on to what Unit has been doing. Or go ahead,
Actually,
Art.
before we go to Unit, I just want to say from the Unit side, working with Holochain, I just want to vouch for the basically maturity, stability, performance aspect of things. We have found things that were creating unreliability on performance. We have, one of the other things is because Unit is a financial app, it validates far more heavily than a lot of other apps. It uses validation of correctness much more heavily than like the Moss apps where you're like co-typing text and there's not a lot of validation that's occurring to in and so that ended up finding some glitches in some of the validation workflows that were fixed, so we have much better correctness of the all of the full validation process, and so it's just been they've been looping pretty tightly with us because we've been using it heavily.
Great. Art, how about you start walking us through Unit? What did Unit do in Q1? What did we deliver?
Yeah, Unit has been doing a lot, and in the list that's here on the page, it's a little bit sort of more recent going backward, but blockchain bridging having been tested and deployed and being used, obviously pretty heavily in the hot to HoloFuel swap demo because that's a blockchain bridge. We're going from Ethereum-based hot into a unit accounting-based HoloFuel context. We're actually taking it into a mirrored or wrapped hot context and then being able to do the swap internally from there. Because in unit, you can define many different types of units of account, right? Unit accounting is the name. Um, We also similarly have unit to unit bridging. So different instances of unit, different accounting systems being able to move units of account in between those systems, transfer between systems. Um, and being able to also have price oracles on things, whether that's blockchain price oracles or other types of market price oracles like we have in there, it connecting in with Forex currencies to display different currency values because some of the units of account that may be in unit is national currencies as units of account. And we tied in with we already talked earlier about the joining service stuff to kind of extend the configurability of membranes and joining process and KYC levels and the different ways that different unit instances can have participation membranes. And we already have inside unit also the ability to kind of have subgroups or we originally called them swim lanes, but they can be value networks. There's not necessarily really good language for the rest of the world to understand that, but it's a space where you have a set of units and interactions defined that is a part of the larger community and a larger set. Um, and multi-currency trades, I think, is actually one of the really interesting things because it allows you to basically send one or more units in one direction in exchange for one or more units in another direction and kind of break the sort of pairwise trading assumption that most of the blockchain world is built around. It lets you be able to just send those things directly to each other in a peer-to-peer transaction flow, not mediated through an exchange, not other any intermediaries at all. And you can bundle multiple units of each type all in one transaction, one trade, essentially. It's a multi-step transaction because there's some handshakes going back and forth to get both parties' state to adjust correctly, but it is one agreed upon transaction between the parties. Um,
Before you go on, I
yeah,
just want to say, I want to just highlight for people who are listening, this is an incredible bit of functionality that Unit provides. This is something that is actually, I almost want to say world breaking because it really changes the way you can think about and create spaces for doing interaction that currently the world doesn't do much of. And it has big, big implications for disintermediation of some of the places where there's a lot of extraction of value in the financial world around arbitrage, because you no longer need to do that kind of thing. So it's tucked in here inside this, but it's big news. And it's just kind of natural. It's one of the outcomes of what happens when you think about this kind of work from the point of view of units of account.
Yeah. And we're not quite ready to talk about a lot of this yet, but it is part of some of the future functionality that we see that it's worth our time investing in building on and that kind of stuff to generate other revenue sources for Holochain and the ecosystem here, um, powered by Unyt. Because there are whole domains of financial applications and clearinghouses and things that can be powered by this. Um, we already talked about KYC enough. I'm going to skip that now. Um, and then there were some things that we were aiming for. There's one item that we had after the hot swap thing on our list that had to do with data migration and recovery
We didn't
tools.
have the test on the list, actually. It
Okay.
wasn't, it was our internal target. We weren't making a
Yeah.
promise publicly about that, but for ourselves, we had promised ourselves we were going to try to get to the test.
Yeah. Um, and we've actually built some of these things, but we haven't done a release that makes them clear and obvious to everyone how to use them. Um, but it's for being able to when you're putting real data in a financial system and you need to carry that across different versions in the future to migrate your balances or to have recovery tools if you mess something up, and have ways that you can restore your chain or your state, or have ways that if you have gotten yourself into a bad spot, you've corrupted yourself in some way, that there could be an assisted recovery mechanism. Part of the thing we're building in to be available in Unit, not to say every Unit instance will use it, but like there's all kinds of people who have totally shot themselves in the foot in blockchain land. You know, even just in the hot community, there's all sorts of people who ended up sending hot to the smart contract that is the ERC20 smart contract, which we don't have any keys to interact with. It is a fixed contract, one and done, published. We can't send you back your hot if you've sent it to the smart contract. It's basically
Or
gone
any
into
other
a
tokens you sent there.
black
'Cause
hole. Yeah, exactly. And there's a bunch of people who have made that mistake because of the ways the addresses look. Sometimes people think that they're sending to a person, but they're just sending to an agreement. Anyway, lots of mistakes people make that there's no paths to recover from in blockchain land. And what we're trying to do is have some spaces, and this is going to be configurable per unit instance, where a kind of customer service role could, if there were tokens provably dead, be able to essentially reissue those tokens and transfer them to you based on the proof that they're dead. Like that they're like if they'd been sent to the ERC20 contract as an example, right? Those are irretrievable. So can we regenerate ones for you? That's sort of an advanced recovery technique that is not available in blockchain, but could be available in different unit instances depending on policies. So that's some of the
I'll
tools that we actually.
summarize. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'll summarize. Hey, we had said we're gonna ship data migration and recovery by the end of Q1, and that's one that we didn't ship yet. That's not out in the wild yet. So,
Yeah.
um,
Uh, I don't know. It's just not to say that a bunch of that's actually built. It just isn't packaged up for use yet.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one that we internally were hoping to get to, but didn't until the beginning of Q2, Arthur, was
Was the hot to HoloFuel swap, right? Like in terms of testing the
test.
technology, demonstrating the technology, it was our intention to have that be mid-March, and that slipped into the first week of April. Not because we didn't have people testing it, but we weren't ready for the full 350 person list yet because we were still getting good feedback from the smaller list and needed really to iterate on some changes. And yeah,
Yeah. And it's
that's why
been
we were in this
phenomenal.
sprint where we've done like 20, 25
Yeah,
releases in the
yeah.
past weeks. Yeah.
The team hasn't slept a whole lot. There's not been a lot of weekends for us in a while.
For the
Um,
unit team. The unit
the
team has
unit
now
team,
like a month where we've
Oh
worked through
no,
the
and
weekends.
also
the
late nights
Holochain
for the
folks too.
Holochain
Yeah.
folks supporting, and so it's
Yeah.
been a ton of work. It's
Yeah.
been been pretty impressive to watch the team pull around that. Been really
But
Yeah.
grateful to see that.
Zippy, I'm going to pass it back to you. Beyond the boundaries of our org or orgs.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this brief is mostly about our org, but I want to point to happenings.community. They're a partner that creates a newsletter that publishes a bunch of the stuff that's going on out in the world. And I really like you should just go there and read all of the things that they're talking about. They point to developments from different things, but we can call out a few of those. So Moss is one of the runtimes for Holochain. It's maturing a lot. There are 17 different tools in the library, from chat, video conferencing, Kanban, decision making, planning, conference management, whiteboard. There's all of those tools are maturing and being used. We were watching adoption pick up on that, and it's very exciting, near and dear to my heart because I spent a lot of time working on that. Flux and Atom is also doing some really interesting things. I've seen live local AI transcription and summarization of a conversation in chat. It's really cool to see that, like local AI. None of this is going to the cloud. It's that conversation's happening and messages are being sent to somebody who's got a nice GPU, does the transcription, sends it back to the other node, and it shows up in the actual chat. Very cool. We have one of the community app developers who's built a Claude skill for doing Holochain app development. If you want to find out about that, join the dev.hc Discord group, which you can see on holochain.org or developer.holochain.org, and watch the progress in that realm as well.
I just want to say one more thing about the happenings community. It's not just a newsletter. They also manage a database of the Holochain projects that are out there, basically a directory of projects, a directory of Holochain development groups, and all that kind of stuff. And so if you want to see what's happening in the Holochain community,
Yeah,
that's the
it's a
place to
great
find.
place to go. And of course, do come to the Discord. We're in there all the time and can answer questions.
All right.
So that's what we got.
Yeah, this was our Q1 delivery brief for 2026. Coming soon, a live stream on the second quarter priorities and what is next. Arthur, Zippy, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Ciao.